Well, it's Easter again. And Easter, I'm not going to be celebrating Easter with my extended family. I have a husband and a child, so there's 3 of us. But I told my mom on the phone, I said, well, Easter comes every year. And then we were sort of like, well, it didn't come in 2020. It's kind of canceled, so no, you can't really say that. But in normal times, Easter comes every year, so maybe there'll be another year to be together. But usually, we do what we've done this morning. We have the service on the beach, we have the breakfast, we have the service in the sanctuary. We put all the flowers around, I'm up here in the jungle of hydrangea and palms. And we sing the same song, Christ the Lord is risen today. We get to pick a different one for the last hymn, because there's like a couple. But you have to sing that one. That's the main one. And, we pretty much hear the same sermon from the small amount of scriptures that we are allotted for this day. Now, each one of the 4 Gospels tells the story of Jesus' life, has the resurrection story, and they're very similar. So, really, we just got the one story to tell on Easter. And that's all fine, except for the fact that a lot of people, they don't come to church but one Sunday a year, and that's Easter Sunday. So they get the same message every single year. It's the same thing, the same songs, the same. So that's, amen, because it's good, it's consistent. So that's why we had the choir sing the Amen song. It goes through the whole life of Jesus. It starts with, see the little baby, and then it ends in the resurrection, and he's coming again, right? And it takes us from the Gospels all the way to the Revelation. And I can say, I said this to the Easter sunrise people because it only counts for the sunrise people, that I have been preaching at this church on and off for 20 years. That's right. They let me preach when I was in the 8th grade. You do the math. No, I was an intern here back from 2002 to 2004, and the senior pastor at the time said, you do the Easter sunrise service. I said, really? And so I was dating this guy at the time, and he brought his parents. So I was really nervous, They still like me though, and they call my daughter granddaughter. So it worked out, it all happens. I don't think it was that sermon that sealed the deal, but that was how long ago that was. We weren't even married yet. We didn't have a gleam in our eye that we'd have a child someday, and that. Hello, I'd be back here preaching again 20 years ago. But there it is. And I can tell you that that Easter sunrise service is the biggest crowd we have. What do we have, Scott? 500, just about 592, give or take. We count them, every single person. Even the guy in the bathrobe is in his balcony. Counts. And 5 dogs. So, I know that some of you only come on Easter, because you've told me that. They said, I've met you at other things, we do charities together, or maybe, unfortunately, I've been in your life because I've buried one of your loved ones, or officiated your wedding, maybe. And you say, I love to come on Easter. And it's the same. It's the same every year. It is the same message, it is the same. Christ the Lord is risen today, hallelujah chorus, Handel didn't change it in the time, and then it lapsed between last year and now. And maybe that's okay. Maybe that's comfortable, that's the way you like it, it's expected, here it is. You don't have to worry. Or maybe, just maybe, if you're like me, it gets a little old. Okay, here we are, again. Jesus is alive, again. Surprise! He is alive, again. Can we just get to the brunch part, please? Easter ham, bunny cake. I myself am planning to eat my weight in jelly beans later on, after I take a nap. I don't like the black licorice ones. So anybody who likes those can be my best friend, and we can eat the jelly beans together. But you know what? A lot of people, that's how they celebrate Easter. Like a lot of people. If they celebrate it at all, they just do the brunch and the jelly bean thing. But everyone here, within the sound of my voice, has chosen to be a part of something more significant than ham and mimosas. Everyone here is adding to their Easter celebration, the true meaning of the big deal, the bunny thing. The true meaning behind the bunny, I guess. I don't know what the bunny represents, but I think it's a pagan thing about spring, honestly, and I think that's where the eggs come from too. But it points us, it's not bad, because it points us to something really special. Like if they drug these pagan things, even the word Easter comes from something that's pre-Christian. If we drag them in and they point, they're signposts to point to something really spectacular, which is the resurrection of Jesus Christ. The way that God does so much for us, goes beyond meeting us halfway and says, I love you this much, I'm going to give you the hope that this resurrection brings. So you've chosen today to add that to your Easter celebration, and you should be commended for that. In this day and age, yes, because for majority of people, all the people out there, that's not so much for church. And there are a lot of reasons for that, and they're not all on the people that just won't don the door. Sometimes the reasons that people are so unwilling to come inside of a church or even be a part of a church or come regularly or whatever that is because of what the church has done in the past. The church has a lot to apologize for in culture, society, over the last 500 years at least, and that's more than that. And there are people out there who are wounded psychologically, sometimes physically, by their participation in church. And that's where the baby in the bathwater just goes right out. And you and I got to understand that. Now, I know there's some of you who have healed from this, who have maybe raised in a certain way in a certain church and were harmed by it, but you've done some kind of deconstruction and you made some reconstruction and God's put a new heart in you and you're ready to be a part of organized religion again because you feel like you still have a place in the pew. And that's beautiful. So maybe some of the preaching this morning has to do with why folks feel like, no, I don't want to be a part of that, because people that are so against coming in, well, there's this other smaller segment who only feel safe in these walls. And because they hold on so dearly to their ideals and their traditions and things that have to do with the institutional church, they make it really hard for other people to enter the doors. So you came here today to sing a song, to say, Happy Easter, the Lord is risen, He's risen indeed. You guys did a marvelous job of that, by the way. And to hear the story that hasn't changed since last year, if that's when you came last. But maybe this old story that you've heard so many times, maybe you will have ears to listen to it in a fresh way. I say all that to introduce John chapter 20, verses 1 through 18. Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed from the entrance. So she came running to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one Jesus loved, and said, They have taken the Lord out of the tomb. We don't know where they have put him. So Peter and the other disciple started for the tomb. The author includes this part, which I think is kind of comical. Both were running, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. Maybe he felt bad because he didn't give him a name. He bent over, looked in at the strips of... He bent over, looked in at the strips of linen lying there, but he did not go in. Then Simon Peter came along behind him and went straight into the tomb, which is typical of Simon Peter. He saw the strips of linen lying there, as well as the cloth that had been wrapped around Jesus' head. The cloth was still lying in its place, separate from the linen. Finally, the other disciple who had reached the tomb first also went inside. He saw and believed. They still did not understand from Scripture that Jesus had to rise from the dead. Then the disciples went back to where they were staying. So they left. Mary stayed. Mary stood outside the tomb crying. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb, and she saw two angels in white, seated where Jesus' body had been, one at the head and one at the foot. They asked her, "Woman, why are you crying?" "They have taken my Lord away," she said, "and I don't know where they have put him." At this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there. But she did not recognize that it was Jesus. He asked her, "Woman, why are you crying? Who is it you're looking for?" Thinking he was a gardener, she said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him." Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned toward him and cried out in Aramaic, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Jesus said, "Do not hold on to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. Go instead to my brothers and tell them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." Mary Magdalene went to the disciples with the news, "I have seen the Lord." And she told them that he had said these things to her. May God add his blessing to the reading of the gospel. Jesus says a curious thing in his encounter with Mary Magdalene. "Do not hold on to me." What is that all about? You know, I mentioned this a little bit before. Sometimes the reason why people aren't willing to come inside to a church or be a part of a church is because the people who are inside the church, they hold on. You know, it's a curious thing because the biggest expense we have as a church is this building, right? I mean, it's really expensive to maintain property this close to the ocean and this much. And we do it well. We do it successfully. Don't get any rumors around there. But it is the biggest expense we have. And the irony is, the biggest service we ever have is not even in the church. It's on the beach. So that should tell us something, right? That should be a sign. What is it about church buildings and religious traditions that scare most of the public in today's America away? What is it about the church buildings and religious traditions that are held so tightly by the ones on the inside? Because people are holding on. They're holding on to everything from childhood memories of church on Sunday to pre-COVID traditions and routines. You see this altar behind me? It used to be twice that size, width-wise. I cut it in half. Don't tell anybody. I kind of got away with it, but I didn't ask permission because it would have gone into committee and it would have died. Committee members are laughing. Because, I mean, we just hold on. It's just things, you know, it's just stuff. And we hold on, and we hold on, and we hold on. I'm holding on, though. I know I'm holding on. I lost my grandma on January 10th. I was very close to her, and I miss her terribly. The very idea that she's no longer here, and I can't just ask her a question or give her a kiss, and it upsets me, and that creeps up on me from time to time. Like, when I don't expect it, I start thinking about it. And in my grief, I've discovered that I'm creating a shrine in my home and in my life and all around me to her memory. That's her, when she was 16. She was the fair queen of the DeKalb County Fair. And she's in the middle of the float, and then they took this picture. They didn't give you like a scholarship or anything, because nobody went to college. So they gave her a photo op. They took her picture and gave her like these. That's not her senior class picture. That's her her fair queen picture. And there's so many more pictures than that. She was a world traveler, set her foot on 6 of 7 continents. She didn't get to Antarctica. She sent me a dress when I was born from Jakarta. She just had, and because she lived for 92 years, and she traveled the world, she had a lot of stuff, right? A lot of stuff. She wasn't like a hoarder or anything, but she just had these really special things from all over the world. And that stuff meant something to her, and now it means something to me because she didn't take it with her. She just left it behind. It's a mystery to me. Like, I just don't, I know cognitively that she could not take that where she went. But in my heart, her Christmas presents from me just sat in the living room during her illness, and I kept seeing them there. And my biggest question was, what? Nobody else got Grandma a gift this year? No, I'm sorry. It doesn't be judgment. But they were all my presents. And I was like, why are they still here? Why are they still here? Why would I get her anything? I just need to be there. And so, her stuff, I go to my parents, where my parents are cleaning out her house, and just sold it, actually. And I said, well, I'll have this, and I'll have this, and I wear it. I put it on my walls. The pictures are the most as my wallpaper on my phone and my laptop, and all my screensavers are her or me and her. And the stuff is all I have left. My memories and some genetic material that she passed on to me, which, she was the fair queen after all. I'm not so, ashamed of that. But that's all I have. And I am holding on. I'm holding on. And I know I'm not alone in this sentiment. I know that every person within the sound of my voice has lost someone dear to them and knows that period of holding on. It's natural. We want to hold on to what we know. We want to hold on to the people we love. We don't want to let them go. We want to surround ourselves with them. And I think that kind of grief may have been similar to what Mary Magdalene was feeling that day when she approached the tomb. She was going there to anoint Jesus' body because she just wanted to be in his proximity. Dead or alive, I want to be around Jesus. And so when she got there and he wasn't there, already on the verge of tears, she went up to DEFCON 5. She discovered the stone roll away. Immediately she ran and got Peter and John. And when she came back with them, that's when the waterworks started. Mary wept. And after that, it's kind of weird that they leave and she stayed. But again, that's what happened at the crucifixion, right? Somebody sent me a meme today that said, Happy Easter. Instead of Happy Easter, it said, Happy the day that the disciples ran and hid and the women got ready to storm the castle day. Because the women were kind of on the front of this thing, and the men were kind of like, they figured they could get away with it, but I don't think they saw fear. They saw what was most important. So she comes back, and then they leave again, and she has this conversation with the angels, and then she asks the first person she encounters in the burial area, whom she thinks is a gardener. She doesn't recognize Jesus. That's going to be important later. Put a pin there. She didn't recognize him. But then when he spoke her name, she recognizes him, and it turns out to be Jesus. Like, not in the tomb and not dead. He's alive. He's standing there talking to her. In the fourth gospel, the one I read, the resurrected Lord appears first to Mary Magdalene. In the Gospel of Matthew, the resurrected Lord appears first to Mary Magdalene and others. In the Gospel of Mark, the resurrected Lord appears first to Mary Magdalene and company. It's missing in Luke. Like the other accounts, she's the first one to the tomb in Luke's Gospel. She's the first one to the tomb in all the Gospels. But the first people to see the risen Lord in Luke's Gospel, he has this special story off to the side about two people walking towards Emmaus. And they recognize Jesus in the breaking of the bread. Those are the first people in Luke's Gospel to see the risen Lord. But Mary Magdalene was essential to the mission and was technically the first apostle. She went and told the good news of the resurrection. But in John's account, and it's the only one, the one I read this morning, Jesus says, don't hold on to me. Don't hold on to me. Don't cling to me, other translations say. Her friend had died. She saw him raised. She wanted to hold on to him, to call him by the same name she'd always called him. She wanted to pick up right where they left off. But that's impossible because everything has changed. John 20:17 contains the first command that the risen Lord makes. Now, if you were here on Thursday night, we come to church because it's a commandment. Do this in remembrance of me. The Last Supper. He said, this command, do this in remembrance of me. So this morning we have the first commandment of the risen Lord, which is a prohibition. Do not do this. Do not hold on to me, for I have not yet ascended. Jesus' prohibition isn't like a general thing about don't touch me. Because, 10 verses later, he's like, here, Thomas, touch my hands, touch my side. You can touch me. This is not about touching. It's about holding on. Jesus is a new creation, resurrected, and he's telling Mary, you can't hold on to me. It's not about his physical body. Jesus prevents her from holding on to yesterday. He's concerned that she might be staying in the same place for too long. And this happens to us, all of us. Perhaps it's not a person we're holding on to, but a time, a season, a period of our life we look back on with very warm memories. A time that seems glossy. And you may be like me, you try to recreate that feeling by creating an atmosphere. And to some degree, that's what our traditions do around our holidays. They attempt to recreate the joy and the wonder that we've had in the past. But that rarely works. And our memories could be better. Memories funny like that, sometimes we don't remember the reality of what the situation was. The good old days weren't always all that good, you know. And even if we have the same food, the same decorations, the same traditions are observed, we are different from who we were last year, or the year before that, or 20 years ago. If nothing else, our bodies change as we age. We like to age because it beats the alternative, but that's the truth. Time marches on. We change. The circumstances change. There's way more traffic than there was 20 years ago. Everything changes. It can never be the same as it was. In the immortal words of the pop icon Harry Styles, whose song was still on #1 of the pop charts, you know it's not the same as it was. The title of the song is As It Was. You probably heard it. No, you don't live with the Harry Styles' biggest fan? I do. But it gets to a sentiment. Maybe that song's about a relationship, but that's what we all feel. We hate that it can't be the way it was. I want to go back. I want to have this again. But it's impossible. We cling. We create boundaries around our traditions. We create internal frameworks in our own minds. Our perceptions of events is influenced by this willingness and this desire and drive to retain and hold on to the way things used to be. We do this because change is inevitable, and in the back of our minds, we know that, and it leads to our discomfort. And we will go to great lengths, even in the state legislature, to avoid being discomforted. We will. That's why our cars have back massagers in them. Because if you have to drive a car, you might as well get a back massage. Think about, Jesus went everywhere on foot. Think about that. But we hold on to things because we don't want to feel the discomfort of the realities of life. And we get stuck. And that's not good for us. It's not good for our society. It's not good for our psychological health. It's not good for our relationships. And Jesus knew that. This whole notion that we want to retain the way things were, Mary was dealing with that back then. It's not changed. This feeling of wanting to hold on was something that was going on for her, and Jesus probably knew it would be something that would be spread around all his followers, and he said, "Do not hold on to me, for I have not yet ascended." It's not the same as it was, and it never will be. Every year we have new bodies. Now, okay, you may say to me, "Preacher, I don't have a new body. I don't feel like I have a new body." I'm just saying your body has changed since last year. Maybe drastically, maybe not so drastically. Maybe more things in your life have changed since last year. But I don't know about those specifics. But I know one thing. You shed skin cells and hair follicles and stuff like that. We all change. My hair is really different than it was in 2003. Right? We have new temporal landscapes around us. We're not the same people. We're not in the same space. And it will never be the same as it was. We wanted to hold on to how it felt to follow Jesus before he was arrested. They wanted that feeling back. Hosanna, praise, save us, Jesus. They wanted to go back to Palm Sunday. They did not want to live in this post-crucifixion, post-resurrection time. They wanted to go back to the ministry of healing lepers and reaching out to the marginalized. They believed in it. They loved it. They wanted to go with Jesus all the way. They loved the way it was. So Jesus says to Mary, "Do not hold on to me. Do not hold on to the way it was. You have to move forward now, because all this is different." All the things that Jesus did in his ministry are still valid and important, but just blown up exponentially because he's the risen Lord. That changes everything. And she cannot hold on to her conception of Jesus the way he was before, because now he's raised. Do not hold on to me. He's not saying, don't touch me. Don't be near to me. Don't follow me. He's saying, do not hold on to yesterday. I am new, and therefore you are new. The message has changed. And it will never be the same again. It will never be the same as it was. But the resurrection, and this is the good news, is the promise that as you move into that uncertain, uncomfortable future, God holds it in the palm of God's hand.